and then it'll kick in.
All right.
Okay, we're going live, guys.
Okay.
All right. Rudy is middle of a dream.
Still
Welcome
connected
to Garden of the Spirit, a class studying apples from the orchard for the second time beginning after Pesach 2014. This class meets in Long Meadow, Massachusetts, the center of the universe, and is held in memory of Malka Ruth Bas Moshe, Margaret Vogel of blessed memory. Apples from the Orchard contains selections of teachings of Kabbalah from the Arizal Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, based on the weekly Torah portion, superbly translated and explained by Rabbi Moshe Wisniewski. Okay, and we are up to page 438. Today's chapter has 3 pages inside. Okay, ready? And today we're going to do the Lechem HaPanim. Every week in the Mishkan and Beis HaMikdash, 12 loaves called showbread were placed on a special shulchan in 2 stacks. Each loaf was made from 2/10 of an ephah, or 86.4 eggs.
86.4?
Yeah, that's the size.
Oh, okay.
Because 1 ephah is 432 eggs. So when the Torah says, we read isaron, that's a 10th, means a 10th of an ephah. It would be 43.2 eggs. It's a measure. Those we know. What they are in current measurements is not clear. There are differences of opinion. On my right here, just one. Each loaf was, these weren't loaves of challah that were, a foot long. They were not loaves like you see at a special occasion, a wedding or something, that are 3 feet long. Each loaf was 10 handbreadths long. They were basically started off as like a sheet cake. 10 handbreadths long, which is about 31.5 inches. And again, there are differences of opinion on exactly how long the handbreadth is. 5 handbreadths wide, which is about 15.75 inches wide, and 7 finger breadths tall, about 5.5 inches. Half a foot. 2 now, with this 10 by 10 handbreadths by 5 handbreadths, 2 handbreadths of each end were folded. Either they were pointing up vertically, they looked like the same shape as a staple, an open staple that is upside down, or the 2 ends were folded all the way over so that they were horizontal, laying flat on the lower section and closer to a closed, kind of like a closed staple. They were baked Friday and laid on the shulchan, that's the table in the Mishkan and Beis HaMikdash, on Shabbos. The new ones were, now they were on trays. The new ones were split into place as the old ones were removed. Like one going to place, pushing off the other. In that way, the shulchan was never without showbread. When they were removed, they were warm and fresh as when they were placed. And in those days, bread did not stay fresh very long without preservatives. So this was very unusual that they were still fresh a week later. Page 438, we begin with Alan.
The mystery of the showbread. You shall put showbread on the table, remaining before me at all times. We will now discuss the mystery of the showbread. That is the 12 loaves that were always warm. The loaves were baked on Friday, placed on the table on Shabbos, and eaten by the priest the following Shabbos. Miraculously, they stayed fresh for the whole week.
Okay, 2. Chachma and Bina interact with each other. We know that. And Zer Anpin and Malchus interact with each other. Sometimes the Torah used the expression to eat as a euphemism for marital intimacy, such as in Shir HaShirim, which is a song of the love between male and female. I swear between man and woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Please.
Where it says, eat beloved ones. Obviously, both eating and intimacy are biological urges. Eating sustains life, and intimacy creates life. So we need them both for life. They both can be very beneficial, but can be destructive if used the wrong way. Serving Hashem by placing the showbread corresponds to the interaction between Chachma and Bina. Okay, Alan, go ahead.
You already know that above there are several types of couplings, which are all metaphorically referred to as eating, as in the mystical meaning of the verse, eat beloved ones. Eating is a euphemism for sexual relations. Thus, we find that when Potiphar put Yosef in charge of his household and business affairs, he left all that he had in Yosef's care, and with him in charge, he concerned himself with nothing except the bread he ate. Rashi comments, this means his wife. And indeed, Yosef says, when Potiphar's wife propositions him, he has denied me nothing but you being his wife. Similarly, when Yisro heard that Moshe had saved his daughters from a shepherd, he said to them, why did you leave the man there? Call him here and let him eat bread. Rashi comments, perhaps he will marry one of you, as Moshe indeed did, as we are told in the next verse. He gave his daughter Zipporah to Moshe. The verse quoted above is from the Song of Songs, the love poem between Hashem and Israel, as to why eating should be a metaphor for sexual relations.
Okay, 3. In physical terms, there must be a force that causes a man and woman to be attracted to each other, to engage in intimacy. So too for Chachma and Bina. This force is from Arich Anpin, the lower part of Keser, and is channeled through paths we refer to as 13 parts of the beard listed in a chart on page 133. The 13 parts of the beard are represented by the 13 attributes of mercy that we recite in Tachanun. Each of the 13 paths is called Mazel in Hebrew and Mazla in Aramaic, the language of the Zohar. Mazel in Hebrew is from the word nozel, to flow or drip. So what it's saying is that the divine energy flows from Arachanpin, the lower part of Keser, through 13 channels into Chachma and Bina. And these 13 channels are referred to as the rows of the beard, or tufts of the beard, rows of the beard. Okay. No, not okay. Sorry. Did we just do that? 4. This brings us to another connection between eating and intimacy. The gematria of bread, lechem, is the same as Mazla, 78. Okay, Alan, now you can go.
Now, the coupling of Abba and Ima is affected by the mazel of the beard of Arachanpin. The numerical value of the word for bread, lechem, is 78, is the same as that of the Aramaic word for mazel, mazla. Lechem is lamed ches mem, 30 plus 8 plus 40, 78. Mazla, mem lamed zayin aleph, 40 plus 30 plus 7 plus 8, 78. In order for a couple to unite in marital relations, there must be some inspiration that descends upon them from above. In the case of Abba and Ima, this inspiration is a spark of divine consciousness that descends upon them from the preceding partzef, Arachanpin, the will. Specifically, it is channeled through the beard of Arachanpin, which, as we have discussed previously, subdivides into 13 tufts, which in turn correspond to Hashem's 13 attributes of mercy. These attributes are called maslot, plural of mazel, meaning channel of flow, since the root of mazel is nun zayin lamed, which means to flow. Thus, the zodiacal signs are also called maslot, since they channel the divine beneficence into the natural world. In other words, the will to live an enhanced life is the motivation for Abba and Ima to couple. In prosaic terms, we might say that a couple can engage in marital relations either as an expression of love for each other or of their desire to become parents together. When focusing on the latter intention, their coupling is like that of Abba and Ima, father and mother. And the inspiration they draw upon to unite in this way comes from their own precedent or parents. The former intention is presented by the coupling of Zer Anpin and Nukva. The names of the Partzufim are in Aramaic, taken from the Zohar, as in this concept of mazel. That is why the numerical analysis uses the Aramaic term mazla rather than the Hebrew mazel. The text refers to Arachanpin by the Zoharic term atika, not to be confused with the parts of Atik Yomin.
Okay, so usually we have our Atik Yomin is the higher part of Keser, Arachanpin is the lower part. Here it refers to the lower part as Atika, I guess, which may be very common or standard over there. Okay, thanks. Now, of the 13 channels from the beard, one that brings Chachma and Bina together is the 6th, which would be on the list of attributes of mercy, which, like I say, are a correlation, would be Rav Chesed, abundant kindness. And we don't get into that, the which one of the 13. The 6th is the letter Vav, spelled Vav Vav. 2 Vavs for the 2 stacks of showbread, 6 loaves each. They also are represented by the 2 letters Hey of Hashem's name, each spelled Hey Aleph, whose gematria is also 6. Jim, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
439 in the middle.
This mazel is the 6th of the 13, and the letter representing the number 6, Vav, is spelled out by doubling itself with another Vav. These 2 6s are manifest as the 12 loaves arranged in 2 arrays of 6 each. They also manifest the 2 letters Hey of the name Chavaya, whose numerical value, when spelled out, also equals 12. One of the ways the letter Vav, the 3rd letter of the name Chavaya, can be spelled out is Vav Vav. These 2 Vavs represent the 2 arrays of the 6 loaves arranged on the table. The letter Hey appears as the 2nd and 4th letter of the name Chavaya. One of the ways it can be spelled out is Hey Aleph. The numerical value of this combination is 5 plus 1 equals 6. So the two Heys again give us two sets of 6.
So the 12 loaves correspond. Wait, 12 loaves have to do with the interaction of Chachma and Bina, or Chachma and Bina engaged in gamogenesis. That, where does that come from? What pushes or draws Chachma and Bina together? What attracts them to each other? That is the divine flow from Arich Anpin, specifically the 6th of the 13 channels. Number 6 is the letter Vav, and Vav has two Vavs, each one 6 and 6. That's how we have two stacks of loaves, 6 loaves in each stack. Or it could be the letter Hey of Hashem's name, Yud and Hey, and Vav and Hey. There are two Heys. So, and if you spell it Hey Aleph, the value of each one is 6. Oh, we go up to 9. Okay, 6. The showbread also correspond to 3 names Havaya, which have a total of 12 letters. Each Havaya is 26, and 3 times 26 is 78, the same as Lechem and Mazla. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
These 12 loaves derive from the 3 names Havaya present in the said mazel, which together comprise 12 letters. The numerical value of these 3 names Havaya is the same as the numerical values of the words for bread and mazel. So, Yud Hey Vav Hey. So you have 10 plus 5 plus 6 plus 5 equals 26. 3 times 26 is 78.
Okay. 7. As we said, the Torah says the showbread must be on the shulchan at all times, tamid, continuously. This is because Chachma and Bina always interact. They never separate. This is also the reason the showbread was always warm. Warmth is another euphemism for interaction, for gamogenesis. The Torah tells that Yaakov put out his peeled sticks when the sheep were in heat. So that's warmth. That's the word the Torah uses. When the sheep grew warm or they were in heat. The showbread stayed warm because Chachma and Bina never separate. This is why it was always warm, and this is why it was always on the shulchan. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Since Abba and Ima couple continuously, this bread, that is the mazel that motivates them to couple, must be continuously on the table as it is written, and you shall place showbread on the table before me continuously.
Okay, page 440, continue reading.
For this reason, also, it is always warm, as it is written, to place the warm bread on the day it is taken off. It is always warm to indicate that the mazel too is always warm, arousing continuous supernal coupling of Abba and Ima. Warmth and heat, in the vernacular also, are metaphors for sexual arousal. Rabbi Wolf Ashkenazi notes here and that in some texts add, we find that coupling is referred to as heat, as it is written, whenever the flock are in heat.
Okay. Finally, we have 2 more. Only the Kohanim eat showbread. The Kohen Gadol represents Chachma, the first of all 10 spheres. An ordinary Kohen brings divine flow from Chachma through Chesed, bringing Hashem's benevolence to the people. The Levi, on the other hand, represents Gevura. Go ahead, Jim.
Only the priests were allowed to eat this bread. This is because the priests manifested Chachma. The beginning, the high priest of all the 10 Sephirot. The right axis on the Sephirotic array alludes to 3 types of priests. Chachma is the high priest, Chesed the regular priest, and Netzach to the assistant Sagan priest. The left side of the Sephirotic tree alludes to the Levites, the priests who officiated at the sacrificial rites in the temple, channeled divine beneficence downward to the people, and thus manifested the attribute of Chesed, God's loving kindness. The Levites, in contrast, accompanied the temple service with music, arousing the emotions of the people and focusing their consciousness upwards on God. This ascent is an attribute of Gevura, God's strict judgment, for any ascent implies a transcendence or a rejection of the lower level one is ascending out of.
And we find the Kohanim are sometimes called HaKohanim, VaKohanim HaLeviyim. I messed something up here. The Kohanim Levites, or in other words, Kohanim from the tribe of Levi. In Sefirot, they represent Chachma and Bina. Since they never separate, Bina is tempered and does not contain strict judgments. In our world, the Levites are not sweetened by Chachma because they're here in our world, and therefore they may not eat the showbread. But above, I guess they have nothing holding them back from the showbread, and that's this. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Through this, you may understand the meaning of the phrase, the Levite priests. We see, in fact, that the Torah sometimes calls the Levites priests, as it is written, they will approach the priests, the children of Levi, and the like. The reason for this is that the archetypes for the priests and the Levites are Chachma and Bina, respectively. Since, as we have said, these 2 Sephirot never part, the Levite on this level is sweetened. That is, he exhibits no strict judgment. He is therefore is closely allied to the priests. They all exist together as one. But below, in their physical manifestation, the Levites manifest strict severity. They therefore cannot connect with the priests as they do in their spiritual archetype. This is why showbread is eaten only by priests who manifest Chachma.
Okay. I did. Thank you very much. I did prepare some of the next chapter. Stop share. There we go. Any thoughts, reactions, comments?
Rudy, you're quiet. No comments? Are you there?
Okay, so we have, he's on mute.
I know.
Maybe he fell asleep in the back seats.
Or did I take a phone call?
That could be. I'm saying that his fancy car there.
Yeah, I know. What back seat?
Okay, so this is about the lechem apanim, the showbread, and everything that it stands for. What's it connected to? So now we know.
Yeah, but we don't know the mystery. Why it kept so fresh? All that gold.
We
From
said
the
like
Because
fresh.
the Chachma and Bina are constantly joined. That's why it's so fresh.
Right. From the heat generated from the joining of Chacham and Bina.
Yeah, that's why it's so fresh.
All right.
Heat keeps it fresh. When you
Heat.
heat something up, does it stay fresh?
Heat. Heat.
You heat up bread, it stays fresh, right?
Heat.
Heat. So
Achman, Bina are joined together all the time. That heat is always there. That's why it's fresh.
for a whole week.
Yep.
Wow.
Okay, Gershon, does that help?
Oh,
Thank God I had dinner before.
Okay, we're ready to go on to 441. Oh,
No,
wait, and
don't
we
we
just
go in
did
the
about
back?
eating, right?
Do we do an addendum?
no, there is no addendum. The next addendum is in the second half of Tetzaveh, which is
The
starting.
Okay.
addendum is, the addendum was a continuation of chapter 1.
Okay.
So we already did that one.
All right.
Okay, next. In Tetzaveh, Hashem told Moshe to ask Bnei Israel to bring him pure olive oil, crushed for the luminary or crushed for the source of light,
Mhm.
to raise a continual flame. While any olive oil could be used for the meal offerings on the altar, only pure olive oil, that is oil that's clear of sediment, can be used for the menorah. So I'm not 100% sure on the process, but basically first I think it's called, you crush the olives, means
The
they're
first drops, I believe.
crush the olives, which means that there's like a up to 9-step process. And basically along that way, some of the oil drips out on its own. You have to split the olive or crush the olive, but some of the olive drips out on its own. And that is a very pure liquid without sediment.
Right.
That's what you can use for the menorah.
Mhm.
Then when you press it, you squeeze it, you press it, and then there's a lot of sediment that comes out with it. And that can also be used for the meal offering. But only basically, I mean, you crush it, but there's stuff that drips out on its own. I guess you let it stay, and then that can be used for the only that can be used for the burning the light, because that is so to speak sediment free, or with minimal amount of sediment. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. So now, you ready? The menorah is correlated with nukva, malchus. The showbread was correlated with chachma and bina. The menorah is correlated with nukva, which is malchus. In
Mhm.
this, so we're going to have some new things here about malchus. Malchus is on the backside of Zerampin. Malchus becomes its own entity through the subspheros chesed of Netzach and chesed of Hod. And we're going to explain more of how that works. When we say Malchus on the backside of Zerampin, do you remember we've talked about a coupling or interaction which is back to back?
Yeah.
Yep.
It seems like it seems, or maybe that's before Malchus is developed into its own entity, and then it's stuck onto the back of Zerampin, and that's not good like that. It needs to be its
Right.
own entity, and then it can face Zerampin and interact face to face. Okay, Gershon 441.
Tetzaveh, 1, light from the left. Take for you, Moshe, pure olive oil, ground for use in the candelabrum in order to kindle the eternal lamp. The menorah manifests the parts of Nukba of Zerampin, which is initially postured back to back with it. Nukba is rectified and constructed chiefly through the two subspheres of Chesed within Netzach and Hod of Zerampin, which are revealed lights. Nukba must be reconstituted out of its original back-to-back state in order to be able to face Zerampin face-to-face and couple with it. Although we have mentioned previously that Nukba is constructed from the subspheres of Gebura, of the preceding Sephiros, here we are discussing a further rectification process. We have explained the difference between the male and female principles in terms of the difference between the drives for abstraction and concretization. Well, that's Ima and whatever. The male principle seeks re-inspiration from the spiritual levels higher than it, while the female principle seeks to manifest divinity in the levels below it, this being Hashem's directive to make the lower worlds into his home. In order for the female principle to exhibit this consciousness, the male abstraction drive must be subdued or hidden. Only then the female principle assert itself and become an equal partner with the male principle. The female drive or consciousness is derived from the Netzah and Hod of the male principle, inasmuch as Netzah and Hod are the two Sephiros that are on one hand possess their own content, and on the other hand are oriented and extend outward from the Sephirotic body. Yesod, in contrast, is oriented outward, obviously, but in its content is essentially the coalescence of the preceding Sephiros. Thus, they already exhibit something of the female consciousness, albeit not enough to enable Zerampin, the male principle, to act in a female way of its own, hence the need for a female Partsev.
Okay, so it needs to create a female Partsev.
A little complex there.
What? Did you get it?
Yeah, I'll read it again eventually one day.
There's a lot of what's called. Basically, all that it says is what I wrote here.
Okay.
That Malchus starts off on the backside of Zerampin, and it needs to become its own entity. The first three of the emotions, Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes, are focused inward. Netzach, Hod, Yesod are focused outward.
Or downward, yeah.
Outward.
All right.
And that's why they can relate and give to the Nukva, which is on the back. Yesod, it says, doesn't have of its own. It gets from all the other five. So that doesn't count. Basically, that's what it says. That's all. And then there's an element of female in the Netzach and Hod, but not enough that you can say that there is a feminine component there. Then it has to go to Malchus, and then it can become a female component. 3. Whoa, who wrote all this? There are 2 types of light that flow down. I'm surprised they don't explain this at all. One is Or Yashar, a direct light. And the other is Or Choser, reflecting light, bouncing light, returning light, reverberating light. Forget about this. Bouncing light, reflecting light, is reflected back, and like a reverberating echo is more powerful. Light from Malchus actually originates in Yesod of Bina. The light from Malchus actually originates beyond Zerampin, in Yesod of Bina. It is which is at the level of the chest of Zerampin, because it's like near the bottom of Bina. So it extends down to the chest of Zerampin. The light descends to Yesod, the bottom of Zerampin, and then it's reflected back upward. As it bounces upward, some of it escapes to the back of Netzach and Hod, where it reaches Nukva. In the parallel passage in other books, it says it escapes through the chest, or Tiferes, where it reaches Nukva. For us, it's a minor difference. Okay, go ahead. That is as
two irrelevant comments. One is that I seem to remember this one because you brought the optical fiber lamp. So as a teacher, props are very interesting.
I brought it for this?
For the previous.
He bought it for the beard, I think.
Yeah, for the muzzle and the drip.
The beard or the skull.
Beard,
and the other thing is that reflecting light reminds me, it triggers in my head the thought of laser, because laser, you have a single wavelength bouncing and then escapes, and it's all the same wavelength all collimated, whatever. Anyhow, so let's read.
No, that's exactly it.
Yeah, sounds
It's like
like
maybe
it.
it's the difference between alternating current and direct current. But
Sounds-
exactly it. Does the laser bounces?
Uh,
Right.
Alan, you know how a laser works?
It more or less directs the light straight ahead. It doesn't really, it bounces off the prism, but it
You have two mirrors, so it goes boom, boom,
mirrors
boom,
it
and then
bounce off and it directs it straight ahead.
yeah. Oh yeah. So as we have explained elsewhere, these states of Hesed descend quickly when they issue from the Yesod of Iman, which is situated level with the chest of Zerampin. When they strike the Yesod of Zerampin, they reflect off it and ascend. Should I go? Should I
No.
continue? No.
No, I'm going to try to show you an echo. How do I get this back to the beginning?
Oops. Send us a link.
An echo? I know we all know what an echo is.
Well, you have to listen.
Listen, 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 listen.
Can't hear anything.
Can you hear the echo?
No.
No, no,
Echoes
no,
reverberation of sound waves.
Schnitzel, schnitzel, schnitzel.
no.
That's not an echo.
Schnitzelmacher, schnitzelmacher.
Hear the voices?
schnitzelmacher.
Hearing strange voices.
I'm trying to see where the mic is. I thought the mic's still here.
Schnickel, schnickel, schnickel.
Somewhere in the computer.
There's a mic somewhere here.
I got these strange voices I'm hearing in my head.
Schnitzelburger, schnitzelburger, schnitzelburger.
I think it's saying, I'm crazy, I'm crazy, I'm crazy. I'm crazy. That's what I
That's
hear
not the
someone
mic.
saying. Ay, ay, ay.
Where is the mic on this laptop? This, I think, is a
near
finger.
the camera, near the camera, maybe
Huh?
near the camera. You see a hole somewhere?
For a little hole, yeah.
I do not.
The bottom, maybe?
That's what I thought it was, but I don't think that's it. It says,
Well, you sound good.
I think, no, it's an SD card. I don't know.
How do I do this? No, I can't.
Okay, whatever. Anyways, there's an echo that the kids did in Masada. A certain place in Masada, you go and you scream, and the echo bounces back like a little bit later. There's a delay.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
Has to get somewhere, then
As
come
it gets
back.
somewhere to bounce off the walls.
Yes,
Bounce off the walls of the valley.
yes, but it's really cool. It's really loud and it's dragged out.
We believe you.
Okay, you read it. Okay, good.
A
Let's do
glimmer,
4.
yeah.
Nukva is very different than Zeranpin. Direct light, no matter how far it would descend through Zeranpin, and by the way, in other places, it goes into a whole. This explained much deeper. The direct light or the
Reflected.
or reflective light. Direct light, no matter how far it would descend through Zeranpin, could never create Nukva. It is only because Nukva is so different. It is only with the powerful reflected light that bounces in the opposite direction that Nukva, the opposite of Zeranpin, could be created. And we may apply, I don't know, Newton's third law of motion here, that every action creates an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, Gershon, go ahead. A glimmer.
A glimmer of this reflected light shines outside Zerampin, behind Netza and Hod, and thus reaches Nukba. This is the way this process is described in Shar Hamitzvot. In the parallel passages in Tamei Hamitzvot and Sefer HaLikutim, it is stated that the glimmer of the reflected light shines outside Zerampin behind its chest, that means at the level of Tiferes, not Netza and Hod, and reaches Nukba from there. Keep going.
No. Okay, yeah. The
Yeah,
As is known, Nukba is built.
One moment, one
Yeah,
moment.
well,
or the Shar HaMitzvot is the center text. The one on the right, Sefer Likutim, and the one on the left is one on the right is Tam Sefer Likutim. The one on the left is Tamei HaMitzvot.
in the columns on the text, that's what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So 3 different books that have the same idea.
Yeah, maybe
Okay,
one
and
day.
then continue to the next paragraph.
As is known, Nukba is built only through reflected light, not through direct light. Thus, if these lights would not descend as described, Nukba could not be constructed at all. The idea that Nukba is built only through reflected light expresses that what we said earlier, that the male principle cannot directly create a female principle since their respective orientations are opposite.
Okay. We're talking about the olive oil for the menorah. That menorah is nukva or the malchus, and we're saying that it comes through direct light. I'm sorry, we're saying it comes through reflected light, and it has to bounce off the yesod, which is the bottom of the zerampin, bounces back up to Netzach and Hod, specifically the Chesed of Netzach and the Chesed of Hod. Through there, it escapes. It reaches escape velocity, Alan.
Yes.
7 miles a second, and to escape Earth's orbit and Earth's atmosphere, and then it escapes into the back of Zerampin, where Malchus is there waiting for it. Through that, an independent Malchus can be created, which then can be face to face with Zerampin. Okay, so this is what we just said. This is what how much I've prepared, and this is actually it continues, but it continues to a little different.
okay.
It goes to the what's it called? The analog of the olive oil, or the analogy of the olive oil.